what really annoyed me. Ricky has this dialogue in the book where he's like, if I surround myself with strong soldiers and give them a stake in the game, they gonna keep the hood tight. But here's the thing, Ricky. You didn't even do that for your own family, Ricky. And his belief that someone loses because they never understood the game. Oh, the iron in this knee, because my God, it's tragic irony, but that's why Winter loses, ultimately. See, I'm back on my bullshit. Ooh, this is the one that I have been waiting for, and y'all know I have been so excited to do this book review. If you are wondering what I'm talking about none other than The Coldest Winter Ever by Sister Soldier, one of my favorite books, literally in my top 3. And today, starting today, I am doing a deep dive on this hood lit classic. So we gonna get right into this video and spare not one moment. Like I said, I have been waiting to get into this for a long time. This series is going to be deep diving chapter by chapter. And listen, baby, if you grew up in the 90s, in the 2000s, okay? I had to throw my 90s chain on today. You already know that this is a hood classic. Baby, it was passed around at sleepovers, hidden inside of textbooks at school. Let me not incriminate myself. Stole it off your mama's nightstand and probably returned back to her with some tape on the spine. Because, Lord Jesus, I can't tell you how many copies that got passed around and destroyed. This is why I have a new copy. But interestingly enough, there is a whole new generation of readers, book talkers, booktubers, bookstagrammers who do not like this book. Like, the reviews are starkly different. They don't understand why we go up and go so hard for this book. And that's exactly why I want to do this series. I want to break down why it hit so hard back then. And I also read this book when I was in 8th grade, so I've been reading it with my adult eyes. We'll get to that later. But because of that, I want to break down what's still there under the nostalgia. So let's get into it. The Coldest Winter Ever dropped in 1999, and by the time that it dropped, Soldier was already a heavy-hitting name in the streets. She was an activist, a rapper, a speaker. She was already a cultural icon, and then she turned around and gave us this. And this book changed urban lit, street lit, hood fiction, urban fiction, whatever you want to call it. It changed it. Now, don't get me wrong. Before Soldier wrote this book, street lit absolutely existed, but it didn't exist like this. It wasn't mainstream as this book made it. Because, of course, it would be a lie for me to say that urban fiction didn't exist before this book because, hello, Donald Goines. But Soldier, I feel like, cracked the door open. And then I feel like it opened the door for a whole new wave of authors. They were giving us raw, unfiltered stories about the streets, about hustling, about survival. But in this book, at the center of it all lies Winter Santiago. She's our anti-heroine, our problem child, and the one that we all love to hate. So now that we know why this book is culturally important, right? Let me give you a rundown or a little bit of a refresher for the people who's read the book before and you need a run back. You feel me? Winter is the daughter of Ricky Santiago, who is a Brooklyn kingpin pharmaceutical salesman. She's spoiled, she's popular, she's stylish, she's street smart, and she's delusional. I think the difference between this book and other books is this book isn't a coming of age story where the character gets corrupted and we watch his fall from grace. This book was literally about watching somebody fall from grace who never had grace to begin with. I said what I said. I think that pretty much gives you a little bit of a picture about Miss Winter. So now that we've dug into Miss Winter, let's talk about some of the themes in this book, okay? Because, child, to me, and the first thing that I wrote in my notes was one of the major themes in this book is materialism and morality. In this book, there's a contrast between the two. Winter's whole life and her whole identity is wrapped up in what she has. And the crazy part about it is like, Bookie, but you don't have, your daddy made that money. Okay. She has this overtly delusional belief that she is who she is because of her and off the strength of her, when girl, it's because of your daddy and the things that he has provided you with. And this started very early. Like, let's talk about on page 8 how Winter starts to talk about how it was not hard at all to get her first sugar daddy, Sterling. Ma'am, you were 16. 16. Mm-hmm. Which is when you start to realize, if you hadn't already, which I don't know how you would not have, which is crazy to say because this is only 8 pages in, okay? But this is at the point where you realize that most of the interactions that Winter have with people are transactional as hell. I feel like this book constantly asks us to confront the question, is she a baddie, as she would probably call herself today, or is she just a product of her environment? She lives by this idea that real true power is having one up on somebody before they get the chance to have one up on you. But what happens when you have nothing left to trade, Winter? And this leads me to the next major theme in this book to me as we creep into chapter 1, identity and self-worth. Winter's entire identity and self-worth is tied to her father, specifically his success and the money that he has provided her with to live this larger than life and lavish lifestyle. We see an example of this on page 5 when Santiago is explaining to Winter the type of dude that she should be going after. And she immediately, in her brain, tells us that the only man that fits that description is her daddy. This is one of them girl what moments, because to me it shows what a twisted idea and a view of a man, or what a man should be, that Winter has. Also, if you follow me on social media, especially the Clock app, you know how I feel about Winter and Ricky's relationship. More so on the Winter side of things, I just find their relationship to be very weird, because Winter looks at her dad in almost like this god-like way of existing. So much to the point where I remember there was a point in the book where she was like, I did something that I never do, and I questioned my dad. Girl, like the connection, and I don't know how to say it other than this, but her connection to him makes me uncomfortable, because it's like you reverence your daddy a little bit too much. Like it's borderline weird. But this goes to show us how Winter really doesn't have a moral compass. Winter's compass is made out of tennis bracelets and dollar signs, like shallow. But what really, really ignored me, what really annoyed me, Ricky has this dialogue in the book where he's like, if I surround myself with strong soldiers and give them a stake in the game, they gonna keep the hood tight. But here's the thing, Ricky. Here's the thing, Ricky. You didn't even do that for your own family, Ricky. And his belief that someone loses because they never understood the game. Oh, the iron in this knee, because my God, it's tragic irony, but that's why Winter loses, ultimately. Okay. So let's really get into chapter 1 and break this thing down. The opening lines of chapter 1 the opening lines of chapter 1 in and of itself set the entire tone for the book. And I quote, Brooklyn born, I don't have no sob stories for you about rats and roaches and pissy pew hallways. I came busted out of my mama's big on January the 28th, 1977, during one of New York's worst snowstorms. That's how we're introduced to Winter. God. Like, it literally sets the tone for the rest of this book. The aggressiveness of it, the raw, unfiltered thoughts and dialogue of it, it does not get tamer as we go along, okay? But Soldier really did a good job at emphasizing the type of life that the Santaigas were living. It's like she almost paints a picture of hood luxury that just sucks you on in. And that's one of my favorite things about the book is its rawness, to be completely honest with you. But honestly, as we think about the readers of today, it's very unpolished. And I think that's why a lot of people, I mean, outside of the fact that Winter is just a tyrant, but I feel like that has a lot to do with the fact of why people don't really like this book. Today's audience is used to very slick and cultivated YA prose, dystopian trilogies, and very morally complex characters. Winter is just Winter. She's shallow, she's materialistic, she's ruthless, and a lot of people are like, and we're supposed to like her. But that's the thing, though, that I feel like a lot of new readers don't understand. Winter was not made to be likable. Soldier didn't write her to be likable. She wrote her to be real. If you listen to interviews around the time that The Coldest Winter ever came out, Soldier definitely said several times that this was supposed to be a cautionary tale. You weren't supposed to like her. You weren't supposed to want to be like her. Now, we can't talk about Winter and her father without talking about her mother. To be completely honest, and this is going to sound very crazy, her mother is one of my favorite characters. And the reason that she's one of my faves is because of how Soldier described her in the character analysis in the back of the book. In the collector's edition and the 25th anniversary edition, which I have of the book, Soldier tells us that, and I didn't even realize it until I read it, but her mother, who I've come to realize her name is Lana, did not have a name the entire book. She is the only person in this book who did not have a name. You want to know why she ain't have a name? Let me tell you. Let me tell you why she ain't have a name. Soldier says she did this because her mother, Lana, represents an incomplete woman. She represents the women who stop growing in life, who hit their peak very early. And I mean, for Lana, that makes sense because she had Winter when she was very young. And it shows, because let me take you to page, what page was that? 5? Just like on page 5, when Lana, and I'm going to try to edit this as much as I can, but when Lana says, I'm just going to tell her dad I'm going to put her on pills and let her go because when a girl wants to get popped, she don't get popped. Ma'am, this is your 16-year-old daughter we're talking about. And that line is just, it's a lot. And I feel like a lot of this that's coming from Lana and the way that she parents or the lack thereof is due to some type of deep seated trauma that she hasn't dealt with. And she just passing it down because Lana had Winter when she was very young, like I said a second ago. And I honestly feel and I honestly can guarantee you that her mother and her, Lana and her mother, have the same type of disjointed relationship. It's literally like a form of using the hoochie coochie as a form of currency to get what it is that you want. So, why is chapter 1 important? I feel like chapter 1 is so just setting the scene and letting us know, these folks, they different. Because Winter throughout this book isn't just narrating. She's bragging, literally the entire book. She's daring you to try to one up her. She's daring you to try to envy her. And I feel like that's a big part of the reason that this book became so iconic. Because this girl has all of the audacity and none of the common sense. Soldier gave us a character that we could love, hate, and root for all at the same time. Depending on who reads it, Winter is a villain and she can be the victim as well. And I feel like Soldier lays that out all in chapter 1 while she lays out the foundation. The way that Soldier writes the characters in this book is almost Shakespearean. We meet Winter at the peak of her power until one day in chapter 1, everything changes. There's a scene in chapter 1 that I would say is a very early pivot in the book where they are having Winter's get together, gathering, birthday party situation, and Santa, her dad, gives her gifts and things and such, and pretty much breaks the news that they are leaving Brooklyn. Oh my God, Winter's world shattered. She just don't understand why they gotta leave. And then Ricky go on some tangent about how he gotta move his girls because if somebody was to go off and try to do their own thing and get crazy and try to touch them by touching his girl, it would, sir, just say you wanted to live in a big ass house and let it go. Okay. He ends up telling them that they're moving to Staten Island and not to say nothing to nobody about it. However, because the hood talk, at the end of the chapter, we see Winter, or we hear Winter rather, describing how the last day in Brooklyn was, how things that smelled sweet smelled even sweeter, how things that stank even more. And even though Winter hadn't said nothing to nobody, at the end of the chapter, her best friend Natalie was like, hey, yo, I'm gonna try to get my mama to get the long distance to back up so we can talk and things and such. And thus they depart to Staten Island. So part of me can understand why the new readers don't like it. They're literally reading it with different eyes in a totally different time than when this book came out. Because you also have to think, when it came out in 99, we weren't too far removed from the culture that Soldier was describing in this book. Also, I feel like a lot of the new readers, especially the Gen Zers or the Gen Alphas, really aren't too much impressed by the flashiness of Winter and how she portrays herself, because you can get on Instagram and you can see that at any given time. So it's not something that is like to people anymore, you know? So for a lot of people, yeah, Winter reads as very much so annoying. So, closing thoughts. Chapter 1 does a lot, but one thing that it does well is lay the foundation. It pulls us into Winter's world of this fast money, this power. I really don't understand why she thinks that she. Anyway, but it also sets us up for the train wreck that we know is coming. Winter thinks she's at the top of her game. Winter starts this book out real cocky, real proud, and that's exactly what makes her crash. And honestly, this is why people still debate on Winter to this day. To this day. Because love her or hate her, Winter is unforgettable. She's messy, she's full of herself, she's selfish, she's dumb. But she's iconic though. So that is chapter 1 and my breakdown of it. Next, we are going to be going into chapter 2. We get deeper into Ricky's uprooting the family and moving to Staten Island. And child, Winter just swear it's an upgrade, child, but we all know it's the beginning of the end. So if this breakdown did something to tickle your little fancy, make sure that you hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you know when I post. I post here on this channel every Monday and Wednesday. I am excited to really dig into this book with you guys. Let me know down below, what generation are you watching this, and did you or did you not like this book and why? I cannot wait to chat with you guys in the comments. So until next time, be great. Get bread, stay all the way live, and with everything be intentional, have the week that you conjure. Peace.